Okay, so in this video I'm going to speak about a Spring Cloud bus here. Okay, so before I'm going to jump into the Spring Cloud bus, I would like to discuss about this message here. Okay, so before I'm going to jump into the Spring Cloud bus, I would like to discuss about why this Spring Cloud bus came into the picture, why it is required really here. Okay, so in the last video we have discussed about how to use the Spring Cloud config server and Spring Cloud config client. Okay, so now let's say that this is my message. Okay, this is my config client endpoint message. This is reading the dev environment message from my my config server here. So this is my git repo and this is my message. So here we have like different environment related YAML files I have defined here. So right now I have enabled profile as a dev. So that is the reason whenever we will hit this endpoint we will see dev environment message here. Okay, so now let's say, so if you update this value, so let me update this value. So let me add like environment 1 here. Okay, commit this change, and after you committed this change, right, so when you hit this endpoint again you will see only existing value, I mean like legacy value only. You can't see updated value here, latest value, right? So to get this updated value, so what we can do is, so let's jump into our config server. Okay, here we can do it by using actuator endpoint. Okay, we have a actuator refresh endpoint, so by using that we can get the latest value. Okay, so let me explain that actuator. Let me add this dependency and let's refresh this, and after that once you added dependency, right, so what you need to do is you need to add like some configuration related to this actuator. So here management endpoints web exposure include. Okay, so here I will add. Okay, so that's it. So same configuration we need to add in config client as well. Okay, so let me copy this and let's jump into our config client here, and first let's add the dependency in the pom.xml file. Okay, actuator, let's add this, refresh this Maven dependency, and let's jump into the application.yaml file. Okay, let's add management endpoints here into the configuration file here. Okay, so once you added this, what you need to do is you can just restart your config client and your config server here. So let's jump into config server first and let's restart this config server. Okay, and going back to this config client and let's restart this server, restart this client. So we have restarted, right? So now when you hit this you will see the updated value. Now, so because we have restarted, that is the reason we can see the latest value. But now again I'm updating this from environment 1 to environment 2 here, right? Let's commit this code, going back to endpoint, let's hit this. Still we can see environment 1 only, that is the legacy value, right? So to get this updated value, what we need to do is we need to hit this actuator refresh endpoint. Okay, so this endpoint will update the value. Okay, I think this is also not work. I will explain why. So let's hit this. Still we can see the existing value. So what we need to do is we have to add so one of the refresh annotation on top of the client class here. Okay, let's going back to client controller. Here we need to add refresh scope annotation. Okay, so this will refresh our data. Okay, and once it is restarted, right, so let's going back to, again we have to see the updated value because we have restarted. Again I'm updating as a environment 3. Let's commit this code and let's hit this endpoint. We can see still old value. Now going back to this refresh endpoint, let's hit this. Okay, now we got the 200 response here, and let's refresh this. This time we can see updated value, right? So now the problem is, what we can do is, let's say that this is a single instance. Let's say that your microservice has multiple instances. So in this case, again you need to hit this refresh endpoint for multiple endpoints here, right? So let me start one more instance for this config client here. Okay, so this is my another instance. Okay, I'm going to start this another instance. Let's start this. After we started this, right, I will show you. Going back to our Eureka server here, let's refresh this. Here we can see two instances are running here. One is on 8082, another one is 8080. Okay, so let's going back to 8082. Okay, and this is close this. This is 8080 and another one is 8082, right? So let me check this. Okay, so this is also, because we have restarted, now we can see the updated value. So now what I will do is, again I will update this value from 3 to 4, the environment 4 here. Okay, so this time still we can see old values for the both instances. So now let's going back to our refresh endpoint, hit this. Okay, it's refreshed successfully. Now hit this 8080 instance. Now we can see the latest value in this instance. So what about another instance? You can hit this, you can see old value only. Okay, so to get the updated value for this instance, right, so here we need to hit this refresh endpoint for this 8082 endpoint also. Okay, so this is the issue. So let's say that now it's refreshed successfully, right? Let's hit this. Now you can see the latest value here. So this is the problem here. So the problem here is, suppose if you have like 100 instances, then for all of them we need to call the refresh endpoint here, right? So this is again like cumbersome to call, right? So this is where Spring Cloud Bus come into the picture. Okay, so I will explain what is a Spring Cloud Bus here. Okay, so this is how the Spring Cloud Bus will look like. Okay, so Spring Cloud Bus provides a feature to refresh the configurations, okay, automatically across multiple instances of the required modules here. Okay, so this could be useful when multiple microservices are up and running here. Okay, so this could be achieved by connecting all microservices through a single message broker. Either you can use Kafka or like RabbitMQ. Okay, so let's say that whenever a single instance is refreshed, right, so this event is subscribed to all the other instances as well. So sorry, this event is subscribed to all the microservices listening to the broker, and they also get refreshed here. Okay, so this message broker will listening to all the broker, and they also gets refreshed by using this Spring Cloud Bus here. Okay, so this is how the Spring Cloud Bus will work. So let me going back to the config server. So here what we need to do is we need to add like dependencies. Okay, so I'm going to add like one dependency here. Okay, so it's downloaded successfully. Okay, and after we added this, right, so go to the application.yaml file. So in the application.yaml file also we need to add like couple of configurations here. Okay, let me add that configurations here. So here we have a Kafka, Spring Kafka, and after that Bootstrap servers here. Okay, so let me provide localhost 9092. Okay, so this is my Kafka Bootstrap servers. My server is running on this port number. Okay, and after that we need to enable the bus here. Okay, so that is like Spring Cloud bus. So let's enable that bus enabled true here. Okay, so that's it. These two um, properties we need to define in this application at YAML file. But so before we are going to restart this, right, so we need to run Kafka locally on my machine here. Okay, so my Kafka is successfully started in my machine, so you can just make sure that this Kafka is started in your machine here. Okay, and the same changes we need to apply on, okay, in our config client as well. So let's copy this dependency on this from this config server. Okay, let me copy this and going back to Kafka, sorry, config client here, open the pom.xml file here. Okay, let's add this, refresh this maven, and after that going back to application.yaml file. So here also we need to add, so this configuration properties here, so that is related to our Spring Cloud bus here. Okay, so first, like, let me add Kafka Bootstrap servers. Okay, here localhost, okay, 9092, and after that, so we need to enable the bus also, right, bus, and that would be refresh enabled. Okay, true, and after that we have another property, environment enable also. You can just enable this. Okay, so that's it, and let's refresh both of the server and client here. Okay, so this time you can see Kafka related properties in our console here like this. Okay, so once it is started and going back to your config client, and let's restart both instances here. Okay, so both are started successfully, and going back here and hit the endpoints and check this. Okay, now let me update this value again. So I'm going to make it as 5 here. Okay, now let's hit this both endpoints. Okay, still we can see the old value because still I haven't hit any actuator refresh endpoint here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the first instance that is running on 8080. Okay, so this refresh endpoint. Okay, so let's hit this. So this time, so once we hit this for a single instance, right, so this Spring Cloud bus will refresh like all the instances endpoints. Okay, so that is the beauty of Spring Cloud bus. And now, so let's hit this first instance, you can see the updated value, and let's go to the second instance and hit this endpoint. Okay, so still we can see legacy value for this another instance, right? So we can see the updated value for this one instance, so that we hit the refresh endpoint for this instance, right? So to work with this Spring Cloud bus, right, so there is a slight change in this refresh endpoint. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to hit bus refresh endpoint instead of refresh endpoint here. Okay, so let's hit this again. Okay, So this time we can see 204 no content here. Okay, so now coming back to or both the instances endpoints, we can see updated value. Check this. Okay, so this one also is showing the latest value. So to get the confirmation again, so let me update another value here and commit the changes, and going back to our bus refresh endpoint, let's hit this endpoint again. We got 204 no content response. Now going back to our two instances, and let's hit this first instance 8080. You can see updated value here, and let's check this second one as well. You can see the updated value. Okay, so like this you can make use this Spring Cloud Bus here. Okay, so thanks friends, thanks for watching. So please go ahead and subscribe and like my video. Okay, so thanks for watching. So please go ahead and subscribe my YouTube channel. So thanks for watching. Bye.